a domain and a work group? Well, a very basic but conceptual question for a networking professional. But you should be prepared for this and more such questions. To answer this particular question, you can say domain and work group represent different methods for organizing the computers in a network. All Windows computers on a network must be a part of a domain or a work group. The main differences between the two are: number one, in a work group, no computer has control over any other computer. All of them are peers. While in a domain, one or more computers serve as servers. These servers are used by the network engineers to control the security and permissions for all other computers in the domain. Then, as we just saw, workgroups don't have servers or controllers. All computers have the same amount of control. But in a domain, there is a domain controller that checks for authentication and authorization of the users on the network. Only authorized users can connect to the server and access the resources, which makes a domain safer and secured. Then, in a workgroup, you must have an account on that particular computer to use it. On the contrary, the user account is maintained on the server in a domain. So you can log on to any computer on the domain without needing an account on that particular computer. Then workgroups are good for smaller networks with no more than 10 to 20 computers. But there is no such limitation on the number of computers in a domain. And lastly, in a workgroup, all the computers must be on the same local network, whereas the computers can be on different local networks in a domain environment. So these are the basic differences between the two that you can talk about to answer this question. Okay, let's move on to question number 2. What is the difference between a network hub, switch and router? Well, another easy but important question for a network engineer. To answer this question, you can say a network hub, switch and router are the devices that work to connect one computer to another computer. A network hub connects multiple computers together in a private network. This hub broadcasts the data packets to all other connected devices when it receives the packet of data from one connected device. The result is the network bandwidth is split between all of the connected computers, which makes the connection slower. And this is the reason why network hubs are rarely used. Then, like a hub, a switch also connects computers to each other, but it makes the network more efficient because it doesn't broadcast the data packets to all the connected devices. Rather, it sends the data packets to intended computer only. And it is for this reason the switches are preferred over a hub. And then if you see the routers, it is a device that joins the networks together and routes the data packets between them. Okay, let's see question number 3. What is a DNS server and why is it used? A DNS server may also be referred to by other names such as a name server or a domain name system server, etc. It is actually the phone book of Internet, which contains a database of public IP addresses and their associated host names or domain names. When we interact online, we use domain names like tutorialright.com or careerright.com, but web browsers interact using the IP addresses. So when we access the information using a domain name, it is the DNS that translates or resolves that domain name to an IP address so that the browsers can load the internet resources. This is what you can talk about the DNS server to answer this question. Then one of the important responsibilities of network engineers is to keep their computer network secured. So your next question could be, what are the different ways of securing a computer network? To answer this question, you can say, there are several ways to make a highly secure computer network. Some of the important ones are, number 1, make sure your firewalls are set up and configured properly to control the incoming and outgoing network traffic. and prevent any unauthorized access to the computers and networks. Then install a reliable antivirus program on all the computers and make sure that it is updated. In fact, this also applies to all other programs and applications that are used on your network. Then it is also very important that you authenticate all the users before you allow them an access to your network. Also, use a VPN, that is a virtual private network, if you allow your employees to access the private network from remote networks. VPN uses encryption and multi-factor authentication to provide greater security. And lastly, keep your wireless local area network separate from the main company network. So these are some of the important ways to keep your computer network secured. Moving on to question number 5. The next question that we have got here is again a security and performance related question. And it is, what is a proxy server and how does it protect the computer networks? To answer this question, you can say, proxy server is the server which is placed between the client and the internet. It makes the network virtually invisible to external users. Some of the important ways in which a proxy server protects the computer networks are: number 1, it obscures your client IP. That is, your proxy server hides the real IP address of the user in the network. Rather, it provides its own logical IP address to the public network. This prevents the unauthorized users from detecting the real IP address of your computer and hack it. A proxy server also allows you to exercise better control over the network by blocking any unwanted websites. And at the same time, the network administrators can monitor the users in the network and know their activities on the internet. Then you can also filter the requests using a proxy server. For example, a network administrator can set a rule where only the selected users can access the social media websites, while others cannot. Then proxy servers also help in improving the overall performance of the network because they allow caching of recent and frequent web page requests on the server and share them with the other users of the network too. This helps to deliver frequently accessed content faster using lesser bandwidth. Moving on to question number 6. What are the different types of email servers and which ports do they use? Now here we have two types of email servers: incoming mail server and outgoing mail server. The incoming mail server includes POP3 at port 110, IMAP at port 143, HTTP at port 30. The outgoing mail server is usually SMTP at port 25. Now, the next question that we have got here is not really a very difficult one, but it is one of the most commonly asked questions. And it is, what is the difference between HTTP and HTTPS? To answer this question, you can say, HTTP stands for Hypertext Transfer Protocol and is used by majority of websites as means of transmitting the website data using TCP port 80. While HTTPS is a secure version of HTTP that allows for identity verification and low-level encryption using TCP port 443. Okay, moving on to question number 8. Well, this may look to be a little practical question, but it is very simple. And the question is, how would you determine the connection path between localhost and a server? To answer this question, you can say, you can determine the connection path between your computers to the destination server using traceroute command. It is actually a network diagnostic tool that is used to diagnose the network routing issues. It lists all the routers that the data packet passes through until it reaches its destination. And it also measures any transit delays. Moving to question number 9. What is the use of a default gateway? A default gateway bridges the gap between local and external network. It is a node or IP router in a local network through which a networked computer can communicate with external network or internet. Question number 10. What are the advantages of fiber optics over other media? Fiber optics is less susceptible to electrical interference. It also supports higher bandwidth, and signal degrading is also very less over the long distances. So these are the major advantages of fiber optics over other media that you can discuss to answer this question. Moving on to question number 11. Now, question number 11 is something that you must be prepared to answer as a network engineer. And the question is, what are the important topologies for a network? To answer this question, you can say, some of the important topologies for a network are, number 1, bus topology. Here, all the computers are connected in a series along a linear path. The second one is star topology. All the computers here are connected to a central computer, which is called as a hub or a switch. The third one is ring topology. Here all the computers are directly connected to the next computer in a circular fashion. And the last one that we have got here derives its name from the way it looks actually. And it is mesh topology. Every node here has a connection to every other node in the network. And this is where it derives its name from. So these are the 4 important topologies of network that you must be prepared with to answer this question. Moving on to question number 12. What are the functions of data link layer? The data link layer is the second layer in the OSI model. The main functions of this layer are, number 1, it deals with transmission errors. Secondly, it regulates the flow of data. And lastly, it provides a well-defined interface to the network layer. So these 3 are the main advantages of data link layer. Moving on to question number 13. Now, question number 13 that we have got here is again a very short and simple one. But a lot of candidates omit to prepare for it. The question is, what is the difference between baseband and broadband transmission? To answer this question, you can say, in baseband transmission, the entire bandwidth of the cable is consumed by a single signal. But in broadband transmission, signals are sent at multiple frequencies, which allows multiple signals to be sent simultaneously. So this is the major difference between the 2 types of transmissions mentioned here. Moving on to the last question of this video, that is question number 14. What is anonymous FTP and why would you use it? Now, anonymous FTP allows a user to access FTP server without having to provide any credentials to the server. It allows to log into an FTP server with a common login, usually FTP or anonymous, and any password, which is usually the person's email address. The biggest advantage of anonymous FTP is that it enables a large number of users to access the files without having to provide login and password combinations to all of them. But it keeps strict control over the areas that an anonymous user can access. With this, we come to the end of this video. If there are any particular topics on which you would like to see more such videos, do let us know by commenting in the box below. If you have found this video useful, do give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. To stay updated, subscribe to the channel. Thank you and see you in the next one.